Hi everyone. Pardon me for sounding pretty rough, because I got the common cold and gonna try get through this video without coughing, but no promises. Anyway, let's get on with the video. So, you know what's been bothering me lately? The fact that banks are making billions with other people's money, while ordinary people barely see any benefits from it anymore. And I think a lot of people are starting to feel this frustration, even if they can't fully explain it yet. Because the world right now feels upside down. Everything keeps getting more expensive: food, rent, gas, electricity, insurance, games, everything. Meanwhile, normal people are struggling more and more financially. And at the same time, banks and giant investment firms are making unbelievable amounts of money using our money. And that's the part that really gets me. Because back in the day, banks at least tried to make it feel like regular people benefited too. People had savings accounts with decent interest rates. You put your money in the bank invests that money, and both sides benefited. At least that was the idea. Now, most people put money in a savings account and get almost nothing back, barely enough to matter. Meanwhile, banks are still using those deposits to make loans, investments, and profits worth billions. And who benefits the most from that system? Not the average account holder, the shareholders, the big investors, the people who already have massive amounts of money. And honestly, I think people are getting tired of it, because it feels like ordinary people carry all the weight while giant financial institutions take the rewards. And now we're even seeing this influence spread into entertainment and gaming, which sounds ridiculous at first until you actually look into it. Take companies like Bank of America. They don't just deal with savings accounts and mortgages. They also invest heavily in corporations and advise companies financially. And yes, companies connected to Bank of America have held investments in Take-Two Interactive, the parent company of Rockstar Games. Now, to be clear, that does not mean Bank of America secretly controls Rockstar. People online exaggerate that stuff way too much. But what it does mean is that giant financial institutions benefit when companies increase profits. And that's where things start becoming uncomfortable. Because recently there were analysts connected to Bank of America discussing how GTA 6 could potentially raise the standard price of games even higher. Think about that for a second. People are already struggling financially, and now massive financial institutions are basically encouraging companies to charge consumers even more money. That's the world we live in now. And look, I understand games are expensive to make. I understand inflation is real. But there comes a point where ordinary people simply can't keep up anymore. Gaming was always a luxury product. People know that. But gaming also used to be an escape, something people could enjoy even during hard times. Now, some people are genuinely sitting there thinking, do I buy groceries this week, or do I buy the next Pokemon game? Or do I pay another bill, or do I get the next GTA? And for a lot of people, that sounds dramatic until you become the person struggling financially. Then suddenly it becomes very real, because millions of people are living paycheck to paycheck now. And meanwhile, giant banks, corporations, and shareholders keep talking about growth. More profit, higher prices, better returns. But where does it stop? At what point do regular people finally say, enough is enough? And the thing that frustrates people the most is that the people making these financial decisions are usually insulated from the consequences. If food prices go up, rich investors survive. If game prices go up, rich investors survive. If rent doubles, rich investors survive. But ordinary people feel all of it. Every increase matters. Every extra $10 or $20 matters, especially now. And I think that's why people are becoming more angry at banks specifically. Not because banks are evil cartoon villains, but because the system increasingly feels one-sided. Banks use ordinary people's money to generate enormous profits, yet the average person sees almost none of that wealth come back to them. Instead, people get shrinking purchasing power, rising costs, and constant pressure to spend more money just to maintain the lifestyle they had years ago. And honestly, I think companies are underestimating how close people are to a burnout. People are exhausted financially, they're exhausted mentally, and when entertainment companies start feeling more like giant money extraction machines instead of creative industries, then people notice. That's why there is so much anger around modern gaming. Microtransactions, subscriptions, and rising prices. It's not just about games. Games are simply becoming another symbol of a much bigger problem. And a world where corporations and financial institutions keep chasing infinite growth, while ordinary people fall further behind. Now, I'm not an anarchist. I'm not saying banks should disappear. Banks are necessary. Investments are necessary. The economy obviously needs financial systems to function. But I do think something is deeply unhealthy when giant institutions can make billions using ordinary people's money. Pardon me. While those same ordinary people struggle harder every single year just to afford basic life and small luxuries. Because eventually resentment builds up. And history shows that when enough people feel financially trapped, things start breaking. Socially, economically, politically. And honestly, I think we're already seeing the beginning of that frustration everywhere. Not just in gaming. Everywhere. Anyway, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe this is just how modern capitalism works and people will adapt. But personally, I think more and more people are waking up to how disconnected the financial world has become from ordinary life. And I think that frustration is only going to grow if companies, banks, and investors keep pushing prices higher while ordinary people keep getting less in return. But let me know what you think. Because I genuinely think this conversation is going to become bigger and bigger over the next few years. Especially if prices keep rising. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.